Assalamu alaikum everyone. My name is Khalid Turki. Today I will be presenting an article titled Supply Chain Digitalization. Our agenda will be as following. I will start with paper citation, then I will read out the abstract, moving on to research method, and I will share the results and conclusion, and I will end my presentation with the limitation. Now for the paper citation, the title again is Supply Chain Digitalization, Past, Present and Future. This article was written by Zahra Said Gurban and the team, and it was published in Production Planning and Control on December 4th of 2019, and you can see the link for the article here. Now I will read out the abstract. The fourth industrial revolution is driving the creation of a more connected ecosystem. Organizations are now reshaping their strategies to become increasingly transparent, including their supply chain management. The area of supply chain digitalization is starting to attract growing attention. However, its research status remains unclear. We set out in this study to understand what constitutes the underlying structure of its research, what topics have been investigated and what areas needed further attention, how the existing literature can be classified, and how the discipline can move forward. We applied a mixed method approach using both quantitative and qualitative technique to achieve this. A bibliometric analysis of 331 articles with 12,709 references was first conducted, followed by a quantitative content analysis. Results point at a tentative future research agenda featuring 5 paths: data science enabled SCM, supply chain agility, humanizing manufacturing through digital manufacturing strategy, Omni-channel and Internet of Things, and resource-based view and beyond. Now, the research method were, were conducted into several steps. The first one was looking at the bibliometric analysis of supply chain digitalization. And before we proceed, let's first understand the type or the nature of this study. The, um, the main goal is first to identify the trend or the most influential article in certain field, and this require looking into huge data, and by analyzing articles and looking at their references and looking further and further in order to identify data clusters or identify a certain trend. With that being said, um, the first step was to find the most influential article where the author were able to conclude with 331 published article. From out of this number, they were able to cite more than 12,000 articles. They were in the reference, and with that they were able to reveal a current hot subject, and from that from that point they were able to classify a discipline into more subcategories. So the big umbrella here is supply chain digitalization, and then from that they were able to cluster that into subcategory that will come that we will be shown further in this presentation. And there is a comprehensive also using some software packages that I will be talking about to analyze the co-citation, and this is important or essential to uh, understand how the knowledge evolved, or how the discipline progressed throughout the years. And I will share with you the result in the next slide. Continuing with the research methods, now let's look at the technicality of how the data were gathered. The author used two of the well-known academic database, which are a Web of Science and Scopus. These are rich database with يعني, many tremendous number of uh, articles. So the author used two keyword searching method. The first one is the primary keyword, which can be as general as the word supply or the word logistics. The secondary keyword search can be more specified, such as 3D printing, additive manufacturing, blockchain, big data, and so on. And when they and from that search, thousands of paper were presented to them. So what they did is did more of a sanity check, or a general check of the uh, articles by looking at the titles, see how relevant the subject is to supply chain digitalization, and so on. And also, one important thing they did is to exclude all the in progress work, unknown publishers, uh, uh, call for papers, introduction to special issues, such to keep or to limit the the search into very specified and only published articles into a in a well-known يعني publications, which obviously led to a number of 331 that mentioned earlier, with their cited references. And um, and finally, the use of software played a significant role into analyzing the study, which can the software packages can provide more visual research and connect the references together in order to find the clustering that I mentioned earlier. And as you can see from the diagram below, the number of, or the interest over the years on supply chain digitalization, where it started in early 1980, and it started to get more attention as we got into 2005 and forward. Moving on with the research method, now let's look at the quantitative analysis that were conducted in this study. The author used what is called quantitative mapping. Quantitative mapping can be used by the help of the software packages. Different software packages were used in this study in order to visualize the link between the articles and the references. This will be will help the authors to have a visual map on how the data clustering look like, and how the supply chain, how the attention in the academia is shifting between which subjects. They used site space for knowledge visualization and analysis, which is a software package, and they conducted a quantitative investigation of supply chain digitalization literature. The diagram here shows the workflow that they adopted to collect and research the data. So they first examined the existing literature studies on supply chain digitalization by using keyword. The keyword were uh, divided into primary and secondary keyword. The primary that I mentioned earlier, and the secondary as well. They used Web of Science and Scopus to to collect the data, and then examine the relevancy and how the solidity of the published articles. Then they use the quantitative analysis that I mentioned now, and the qualitative or the judgmental content analysis of the quantitative findings, in order to project more of يعني, uh, results that make sense or make sound. And now, moving from the research method to looking at the results and the findings that they were able to drive or find at the end of the study. And from that, they found the highest number of co-citation to be 24 times for one article authored by Lee and Ozer in 2007, and the article title was Unblocking the Value of RFID. And the author were arguing about the utilization of RFID in supply chain, and they were challenging the credibility of the of the يعني supporter or claimer, that they claim they are using RFID to its full potential, and they believe that there are many areas that can help and improve the supply chain that is still yet to be covered. Second highest number of citation was at 20 times frequency. This was authored by Nagai and others in 2008, which is basically a literature review titled An Academic Literature Review 1995 to 2005 and Future Research Direction. The authors analyzed more than or focused on 85 academic journals were published between the mentioned um, um, between the mentioned years 95 to 2005 to provide a snapshot composition of RFID research. The author were able to classify RFID search into technological issues, application areas, policy and security issues, and other issues. Third highest, or if you will, second highest again, it's a tie with the previous one. It's also at 20 times frequency, and it was authored by Zarak, Apsi, and Reyes Perez in 2010. It's also a literature review titled A Literature Review on the Impact of RFID Technologies on Supply Chain Management. This literature review is devoted to the researching the impact of RFID technologies on supply chain. The authors were arguing that there are some technical and economic obstacles limiting the use of RFID technologies. And they are believers of the potential of the RFID applications. Fourth highest number of co-citation frequency comes at 17 times, and it was authored by Chen and Paul Rag in 2004. It was titled Toward a Theory of Supply Chain Management, Constructs and Measurements. The main focus or scope of this article is to fill the gap existed in the theory of not finding a measurement basis. So, they analyzed 400 articles related to supply chain management to provide again a, a set of reliable measurements in order to contribute toward theory building in supply chain management. Fifth highest number of co-citation comes at 16 times frequency, and it was authored by Rikik, Sahin and Dory in 2008, and it was titled Analysis of the impact of the RFID technology on reducing product misplacement error at retail stores. The main argument they used in this article is eliminating the inaccuracy in inventory by utilizing RFID technology. Finally, the most co-cited articles were also summarized in the article or the paper, and the top 20 were listed. These top 20 documents had five distinct interrelated categories or areas that they were discussing. RFID comes up in 9 out of the 20. Big data were in 5. Supply chain performance in 2. And supply chain theory in 2 papers, and supply chain method in 2 papers on the top 20. So the author made a higher level clustering of the data into 5 uh, subcategories in supply chain digitalization, which are RFID in supply chain due to its common attention in the academia. Second, supply chain agility. Third, big data and cloud computing in supply chain. Fourth, influence of digital manufacturing and 3D printing in supply chain. And the last one, Internet of Things in supply chain. And you can see on the table a higher level classification of the clusters into yani, 4 main categories or 4 main classification. The one that deals with the strategies, they are digital manufacturing and omni-channel. The one deals with resource, examples, RFID or big data or computing or cloud computing. The capabilities classification also deal, an example for it is supply chain agility mentioned earlier, and has to do with the performance of supply chain. Performance is also an example. After gathering the data, analyzing it, achieving the results, The author were able to conclude um, important points. The first one is the paper was aimed to review a literature about the supply chain digitalization by exploring anatomy of supply chain digitalization knowledge base and examining the research deposition to understand the current scholarly attention, and finally identify major research group within supply chain digitalization. The author were able to predict the future trend or direction that uh, supply chain digitalization will go through, and they identified path, five paths. The first one is the data science enabled supply chain management. What they found throughout the research that all articles were speaking in one voice toward the data science enabled supply chain management, which means the importance of um, يعني analyzing the data and cloud computing, for example, and many articles were arguing or advocating the benefits or the enhancement of service levels or commercial gains uh, by adapting the data science. And um, the benefits are not limited only to greater inventory and supply visibility. It's can go beyond the commercial gains, and it will يعني give firms or manufacturers more real-time access of sharing information across local and international government agencies for improved decision makings. This will bridge the gap and reduce the inaccuracy of communications throughout the supply chain. And it is very obvious through the research done in this literature review, where most of the article were speaking on that in that direction. Second future research direction is supply chain agility. It was surprising that not only mention the supply chain agility was theoretical were mentioned in the articles at theoretical level. It's also the absence of the discussion about the agility, and which elected to be يعني potential candidate to be discussed even further into the coming years. So let's back forward one step that and talk. The aim of supply chain agility is to formulate and test the agile supply chain framework. Up until now, there isn't any strong foundation on the measurement and test of such a framework, and current work remains theoretical, and there is a growing attention towards the supply chain agility in digitalization area. So um, maybe in the coming years, as per the authors, we will see more attention or more work and effort put into supply chain agility. Third path is humanizing manufacturing through digital manufacturing strategy. This has the potential to decrease supply chain complexity by offering simpler and more effective solutions. additive manufacturing technology produce less waste compared to conventional manufacturing process. And there is a paradigm shift in this philosophy or strategy. First, let me mention that under this category, the author did not they found only literature review, and there is yani, and this from this we can see there is a gap to fill. Also, there is a paradigm shift nowadays in manufacturing as to give more flexibility and more democracy to customers and the supply chain in general, in which the decentralization is important and give more uh, يعني, um, um, يعني flexibility to customers to play a major role into manufacturing. This can be adapted through additive manufacturing, where customers can يعني, يعني play a major role in that. So this will eliminate the old thinking of um, inflexible designs, for example, يعني expensive to change manufacturing process or product. In the coming years, we will see maybe more, or there is actually now a great need to develop or to write or to publish uh, articles and work from the industry in that under this يعني path. Fourth predicted path is omni-channel and Internet of Things. Let's back up one step to explain what the author means by omni-channel. Omni-channels means expanding the sale points or customer interaction points to more venues, meaning a small shop to be visible, for example, online, or adding more yani smaller stations uh, throughout distribution points in order to increase the supply, the number of customers. And Internet of Things is also يعني added to under this path. So um, it is growing. There is a growing attention from يعني noticed from the study that the importance of e-commerce in supply chain. More and more people are becoming interesting, or the firms in general are interested in increasing their sales, especially under the changing business that we are experiencing now, because more customers prefer to buy products online, and there is no limit to size, shape, or uh, weight of the product that they can purchase online. And and with that being said, um, the author investigated how there are many studies investigated how the retailers developed from يعني separate multi-channel to integrated omni-channel fulfillment. Multi-channel means more يعني branches, or more to be visible in the cyber world through يعني omni-channel. And this will allow firms to sell goods and provide services again to customers throughout many channels as possible. This is also rooted to studies that have been conducted in the past by RFID, where RFID tracked inventory and tracked demand and supply chain movement, product movement throughout the supply chain. This will also have more attention in the future to integrate to integrate this in order to expand the omni-channel or to increase the omni-channels. I think Amazon, this is side story. I think Amazon is doing يعني state of the art work or framework that they are adapting similar uh, framework or method. The final future research path is rather obvious because it's titled uh, resource-based view and beyond. And as mentioned earlier in the table at a higher level classification, that a resource resource based, it means the RFID technology, for example, Internet of Things, additive manufacturing, 3D printing, all these technologies, um, the firms to adapt or the organization to adapt such a technology, they want, if they have it, they want to leverage it to maximum potential. And if they don't have it, they are carefully selecting what type and what type to, or what exactly the technology is to that will add a value to the organization. So the key knowledge domains of absorptive capacity as following: acquisition, how the new digital resource are obtained; assimilation, how new resources are incorporated into existing practices and processes; transformation, how these digital resources are used to develop new process or routines; exploitation, how these digital resources are used to increase commercialization. Finally, I will end my presentation with the limitation of the study. The main limitation of the study is the lag time of publishing the articles. The time at the time where the data were collected and considered in the study, after that time, all the in process or published paper after that date, it was not considered in the study, so creating this lag time. Secondly, all articles were examined in English, neglecting other work that could be done in different languages. Third, biased toward well-known scholars and high-quality paper. As mentioned, it was one of the filters used to uh, keep only well-known publishers, well-known articles, only in other words, only solid or well-known journals, which create a bias, eliminating some results that we don't know that is not concluded in this study. Fourth, online versions and in-press article do not appear in the Web of Science. In other words, only articles that were published in a digital format. So paper format, that could be some published paper format or books or some intellectual work, that was not included in this study. Uh, Fifth, data was collected from the Web of Science with potentially different indexed journals يعني, than that of scopes. This means there is a technical uh, issue of translation of indexing the journals, um, which create a room of missing out some articles or some journals or some publications, um, to not be included in this study. Finally, only analyze author co-citation network, meaning the 331 articles and their citation only. The study did not consider going further to co-citation of the references itself, which will may lead to more and more exploration of the work done. Thank you all for listening. That's all I have today, and thank you.